Fred MacMurray isn't a name you hear tossed around in Hollywood gossip the way some of his contemporaries like Humphrey Bogart or Marilyn Monroe are. Yet, during the golden age of Hollywood, MacMurray was a colossal presence, starring in dozens of films, from lighthearted comedies to gripping dramas, and later becoming a household name through television. But here's the twist. Despite his long career and close ties to the industry, Fred MacMurray remained almost completely silent about the inner workings of Hollywood's most glamorous and often ruthless era. So what was he really holding back? Why did this iconic figure, who seemed so approachable and everyman in public, never spill the secrets about the world behind the silver screen? It's a question that's puzzled fans, historians, and insiders alike for decades. While most stars either reveled in the spotlight or got caught up in scandalous exposes, MacMurray kept a tight lid on his experiences, revealing almost nothing. That silence wasn't just about modesty or privacy. It turns out, Fred MacMurray's discretion might have been tied to far more complicated forces that reveal a very different Hollywood than the one we see in the movies. The so-called Golden Age wasn't just about glamour and glitz. It was a world of intense power struggles, carefully constructed images, and a price paid in silence. In recent years, new biographies and accounts from insiders have begun to crack the facade. Stories have emerged hinting that MacMurray was not only aware of the darker side of the business, but may have played a role in keeping those secrets locked away. Rumors about secret deals, pressure from powerful studio bosses, and even whispers about how MacMurray influenced casting and protected some of his peers have surfaced, painting a picture of a man far more complex than his public persona suggested. This video will take you deep inside those stories. We'll uncover the rumors, the behind-the-scenes power plays, and the mysterious reasons why Fred MacMurray chose silence over sensational headlines. You'll see a Hollywood where image wasn't just everything. It was survival. But that's not all. As we dive in, you'll discover how MacMurray's career choices, including a surprising shift from film to television, reflected the changing tides of the industry and his own need to step away from the spotlight on his own terms. And finally, we'll explore what recent revelations from his family and biographers mean for our understanding of Hollywood's golden age, a world where truth was often stranger than fiction. If you thought you knew Fred MacMurray, think again. This story peels back decades of Hollywood's glimmering surface to reveal the hidden costs of fame and the secrets that shaped the legend. The truth behind his silence is more shocking and revealing than you might imagine. So buckle up, because what Fred MacMurray finally chose to reveal long after the cameras stopped rolling might just change everything you thought you knew about Hollywood's most fascinating era. Fred MacMurray was the embodiment of the all-American man on screen. His smile was warm, his characters dependable, and his presence reassuring. For decades, moviegoers saw him as a nice guy, the charming dad, the likable everyman, the perfect family man. But behind this carefully crafted public image, a very different story was quietly unfolding. Unlike many of his contemporaries, MacMurray avoided the headlines that often drag stars through scandal and controversy. He never made tabloid fodder of himself, rarely gave interviews, and almost never spoke publicly about his private life. This silence wasn't accidental. Hollywood studios in that era were masters of image control, and MacMurray was a star they heavily invested in protecting. Yet, beneath the surface, whispers about Fred's backstage struggles circulated. Some insiders say he had a complex personal life that conflicted with his squeaky clean on-screen persona. Rumors spoke of tensions in his marriages and strained relationships with fellow actors and studio executives. While no glaring scandals ever surfaced, the hints of something off beneath the surface persisted, kept deliberately out of the public eye. MacMurray's secret wasn't necessarily one of wrongdoing, but balancing two very different worlds. The image Hollywood wanted to project was carefully curated, a wholesome hero who could appeal to family audiences and advertisers. But behind closed doors, there were power struggles, frustrations, and sacrifices. What made MacMurray unique was how he managed this divide. Unlike stars who rebelled or exposed Hollywood's darker sides, he stayed silent, almost as if he had made a pact to keep the machine running smoothly. That silence, many now believe, was his way of navigating a treacherous industry without losing everything. In fact, there's evidence MacMurray's quietness may have been a shield, not just from scandal but from deeper dangers. Hollywood's golden age was notorious for its ruthless control over stars, from contract restrictions to enforced lifestyle choices. Refusing to speak openly could have been a survival tactic in a system that punished those who stepped out of line. Moreover, some accounts suggest MacMurray was more than just a passive player in this dynamic. He might have been involved in protecting others from the industry's darker impulses, using his influence quietly behind the scenes to shield less powerful actors from exploitation. This would explain his silence. Sometimes silence isn't ignorance, but a deliberate choice to wield power discreetly. Still, the question remains, what were the personal costs of the silence? Maintaining a perfect image often meant hiding pain and frustration. It meant sacrificing authenticity for the sake of career longevity. And for MacMurray, the clean-cut star, this balance was a secret battle few ever glimpsed. The layers behind Fred MacMurray's public image reveal that Hollywood's golden age wasn't just a time of glamour and stardom. It was a world where many had to mask their true selves to survive. MacMurray's story is a window into those hidden struggles, a reminder that sometimes the brightest stars carry the heaviest burdens. But the pressures didn't end there. What followed were even more tangled conflicts with the very studios that made him a star, and decisions that would reshape his career forever. And that story, as you'll soon see, changes everything we thought we knew about Fred MacMurray. Fred MacMurray's rise to stardom wasn't just about talent. It was a careful construction shaped by the iron grip of Hollywood's studio system. During the golden age, the big studios controlled almost every aspect of an actor's life, from the roles they played to the image they projected. And MacMurray was no exception. Behind the scenes, the power plays between stars and studios were intense, and the price of maintaining privacy and a spotless reputation was high. MacMurray's contract with studios like Paramount was reportedly one of the most lucrative of his time, a testament to his box office appeal. But that contract came with invisible chains. Studios dictated not just which films he appeared in, but how he behaved off-screen. They guarded his public persona fiercely, ensuring he remained the wholesome face that advertisers and audiences craved. What's less known is the pressure that came with this protection. Sources reveal that studio executives regularly intervened in stars' personal lives, controlling who they dated, censoring what they could say in interviews, and even managing their social circles. MacMurray was often caught in this web, expected to comply silently. In fact, rumors surfaced that MacMurray faced direct orders to keep certain aspects of his life under wraps. Whether it was a complicated marriage, friendships with controversial figures, or moments of personal doubt, studios demanded silence. This wasn't just about PR, it was about power. Hollywood was a machine that polished its stars until they shone, but it also crushed anyone who threatened to expose its gears. One insider account suggests MacMurray was pressured to deny or minimize rumors, even when it strained him personally. That kind of control took a toll, creating a gap between the man audiences adored and the man who lived in fear of losing everything. Privacy, in this world, was a fragile illusion. Yet MacMurray's relationship with studios wasn't simply one of submission. There are hints of tension and quiet rebellion. Some reports describe clashes over roles he wanted versus those the studio offered. Roles carefully chosen to fit his clean image rather than showcase his range. Others recall disagreements over how much he could speak in public or what truths he could reveal. Behind the glossy headlines, MacMurray was navigating a delicate balance, playing the studio's game while trying to protect his own sanity. This conflict may have contributed to his eventual decision to step away from the big screen and into television, a move many at the time saw as a step down, but that gave him more control over his career. The bigger picture reveals Hollywood's golden age wasn't just a fairy tale of fame and fortune. It was a high-stakes power play where actors were pawns as much as players. And for Fred MacMurray, the price of his protected privacy was living a life half hidden, where the real story was kept behind closed doors. But what did this mean for the people who worked with him? And how did MacMurray's quiet influence shape more than just his own fate? The next chapter uncovers how he wielded power behind the curtain, often in ways no one expected. Fred MacMurray's influence extended far beyond the roles he played on screen. While audiences admired his charm and versatility, few realized he quietly shaped Hollywood's inner workings in ways that most stars never dared to. Behind the curtain, MacMurray was more than just an actor. He was a key player in the studio system's complex power dynamics, and his control over casting and production decisions surprised many insiders. Unlike flashy stars who sought the spotlight at all costs, MacMurray's influence was subtle, exercised behind the scenes. Rumors from studio insiders revealed that he often had a say in which actors were cast alongside him, and sometimes even in projects that never made it to the public. This was unusual for an actor of his time, as studios typically kept tight reins on these decisions. Why did he have this kind of pull? Partly, it was because of his reputation as reliable and low drama. Studios trusted him to carry films with broad appeal, and they leaned on him to help maintain the image of stability. But there was also another side. MacMurray seemed to use his position to protect fellow actors, especially younger talents who might otherwise fall victim to the studio's harsher policies. Some whispers suggest MacMurray acted as a sort of gatekeeper, shielding less powerful actors from exploitation and helping steer projects in ways that benefited the people he cared about. This wasn't always an easy role. Taking sides within the cutthroat environment of studio politics risked alienating executives and even other stars. Yet MacMurray appeared willing to navigate these treacherous waters, quietly shaping Hollywood in his own way. However, this influence came at a cost. Those close to him say MacMurray's decisions often put him in the middle of fierce conflicts. He wasn't just a passive observer. He was involved in power struggles that could make or break careers. This placed enormous pressure on him to maintain a delicate balance between loyalty to friends and demands from studios. MacMurray's quiet control also helps explain why he rarely spoke about Hollywood's darker side. He wasn't just protecting himself. He was safeguarding others and preserving a fragile system that, despite its flaws, gave him and many others their careers. But that system was changing, and MacMurray's role within it was shifting. As the studio monopoly began to break down in the 1950s, and television rose as a new force, the old power structure started to crumble. For someone like MacMurray, who had operated behind the scenes for decades, this was a turning point. The next move he made wasn't just about personal career choices. It was a strategic step that reflected these industry changes and revealed more about his desire for control over his own story. What happened next would surprise many, marking the beginning of a new chapter not just for MacMurray, but for Hollywood itself. In the 1950s, when Hollywood's golden age was still in full swing, Fred MacMurray made a move that shocked many insiders and fans alike. After decades as a top film star, he stepped away from the big screen and embraced television, a medium then widely seen as a lesser sibling to cinema. For someone of his stature, this was unexpected, and the reasons behind this shift reveal a lot about the man and the industry. Back then, television was considered a step down for major movie stars. It was viewed as a new, untested medium that lacked the prestige and artistic credibility of film. Actors who moved to TV often faced the stigma of career decline. So why would MacMurray take such a risk? One theory is that MacMurray wanted more control, something the studio system rarely offered its stars. Television gave him that freedom. Unlike film contracts controlled by studios, TV allowed him to shape his roles more directly and to work on projects he cared about without the suffocating oversight of Hollywood moguls. This shift also coincided with a changing Hollywood landscape. The old studio system was losing power, and stars like MacMurray had to find new ways to stay relevant. Television was emerging as a dominant entertainment force, and MacMurray's move was both strategic and forward-thinking. By starring in shows like My Three Sons, he not only kept his career alive, but reached a whole new generation of viewers. But there's another, deeper reason for this shift. a desire to step away from the intense scrutiny and secrets of film stardom. Television work, particularly sitcoms, offer a more stable, private life. MacMurray could avoid the constant gossip and power plays that had defined his film career. It was a chance to redefine himself on his own terms. Yet, this decision wasn't without controversy. Some insiders speculate that MacMurray's move was partly motivated by behind-the-scenes conflicts, tensions with studio executives, dissatisfaction with the roles he was offered, and frustrations over the studio's control may have pushed him toward a medium where he had more autonomy. Despite these whispers, MacMurray kept his reasons close to the chest, consistent with his decades of silence. He never publicly explained why he made the switch, fueling speculation and curiosity that still lingers today. What's clear is that his television career was a reinvention that few stars managed at the time. It demonstrated not only his versatility as an actor, but also his savvy understanding of Hollywood's shifting tides. Still, even as he embraced this new chapter, MacMurray remained cautious about exposing Hollywood's hidden truths. The man who wielded quiet power behind the scenes continued to hold back, protecting secrets that might have rocked the industry. But eventually, those secrets began to surface, slowly, subtly, through biographies and family whispers, offering the world a glimpse of the real Fred MacMurray. What finally prompted the break in silence? And what did those revelations reveal about Hollywood's golden age? That story is next. For decades, Fred MacMurray's silence about Hollywood's inner workings was absolute. He kept his distance from gossip columns, avoided revealing interviews, and let his work speak for itself. But in recent years, something shifted. New biographies, interviews with family members, and insider accounts have started to peel back the layers, offering clues about why MacMurray finally allowed some truths to emerge, and what those truths tell us about the darker side of the golden age. One key factor was the passing of time. As Hollywood's old guard faded and new generations took the reins, the need for secrecy weakened. MacMurray's family, once fiercely protective of his image, began opening up in carefully controlled ways, revealing stories that hinted at the pressures and compromises he endured. Biographers uncovered accounts of MacMurray's complicated relationship with studio heads, how he balanced loyalty with frustration, and how that balance demanded silence. Interviews with close friends and colleagues painted a picture of a man burdened by the weight of the secrets he kept, but determined to protect the industry and the people he cared about. Perhaps most surprising were hints that MacMurray wasn't just a victim of Hollywood's harsh system. He was also a participant in it. His role as a gatekeeper, quietly influencing casting and protecting others, meant he was part of a hidden power structure that relied on discretion. Revealing too much could have endangered many. At the same time, rumors surfaced about personal challenges that MacMurray faced but never discussed publicly. Strained relationships, private struggles with the demands of fame, and moments of doubt about the path he chose. These revelations humanized the star, reminding us that beneath the polished exterior was a man grappling with very real conflicts. What finally pushed these stories into the light? Some speculate it was a growing appetite for Hollywood exposés and the fading stigma around discussing previously taboo topics. Others believe it was a family's desire to set the record straight and reclaim MacMurray's legacy on their own terms. Regardless, the impact has been profound. The man who once embodied the idealized Hollywood image now stands as a symbol of the complexity beneath the glitter. His story challenges the simplistic narratives of fame and exposes the costs hidden behind the glamour. But even with these revelations, many questions remain. What else did Fred MacMurray know, but never say? How did his silence shape not just his life, but the lives of countless others caught in Hollywood's web? His story is a powerful reminder that behind every star is a shadowed world, one full of secrets, sacrifices, and untold truths. And sometimes, the most compelling stories aren't the ones told on screen, but the ones whispered behind closed doors. As we close this chapter, think about what Fred MacMurray's silence really means. It's not just about one man's story. It's about an entire era and the price paid for keeping the lights shining bright. Fred MacMurray's story leaves us with more than just Hollywood nostalgia. It forces us to rethink the very nature of fame and secrecy during the Golden Age. His silence wasn't just a personal choice. It was a reflection of a system that demanded loyalty, discretion, and often sacrifice. For all his success and charm, MacMurray carried the weight of unspoken truths that shaped not only his career, but the industry itself. What stands out most is the complexity of his role. He wasn't merely a star caught in the spotlight. He was a guardian of secrets, a silent architect behind the scenes, navigating a world where appearances mattered more than reality. This dual life is a stark reminder that the legends we admire often hide stories far more complicated than their films reveal. The revelations that have surfaced in recent years give us a rare glimpse behind Hollywood's polished veneer, showing how much power and influence operated in the shadows. MacMurray's influence over casting, his protection of colleagues, and his careful silence show a man deeply entangled in the machinery of the studio system, and also deeply aware of its flaws. His move to television, long misunderstood as a decline, now appears as a strategic retreat, a way to regain control and distance himself from an industry that demanded conformity and secrecy. This shift symbolizes the broader changes in Hollywood, as old power structures gave way to new media and new expectations. Yet, even as those secrets come to light, much about MacMurray remains a mystery. What else did he know? What stories did he choose never to tell? These unanswered questions keep his legacy alive, not just as an actor, but as a symbol of Hollywood's hidden history. For viewers today, Fred MacMurray's story is a cautionary tale about the cost of fame and the price of silence. It challenges us to look beyond the glitz and glamour and ask what's being left unsaid in the stories we're told. So, the next time you see MacMurray on screen, remember, behind that familiar smile was a man who bore the weight of Hollywood's darkest secrets and chose silence to protect a world far more complicated than it seemed. If you found this dive into Hollywood's golden age fascinating, make sure to like and subscribe for more stories that reveal the truth behind the stars. There's always more beneath the surface, if you know where to look.